We interrupt your program to issue a severe warning for an impending emergency making its way to your area. We urge you to be watchmen of the times and to be paired with the essential knowledge and supplies for the wake of the final hour.
My son and I were doing a youth camp in France. What's that mountain range out there?
It's the Alps.
The French Alps. We were at it was a small, maybe 15 youth. And Jamie and I were supposed to go, and we had to do a meeting in the morning and a meeting at night, and then activities during the day. So we get there, get all the way up into the mountains. It's 10 o'clock in the morning. So they're like, you want to go on a hike? And I said, okay, we'll go on a hike. And next thing I know, we're climbing a mountain.
Not just a nature walk.
And I mean, 3 or 4 times, I said to my son, this is like 7, 8 years ago, probably. I said, do you realize if you misstep right here, you die? I mean, that was the kind of thing this was, right? Yeah, this is what they do over there. Okay. And
that's awesome. Sounds
exhausting. We get to the top, I think maybe 4 hours to the top. You get to the top. They're all enthralled with these caveman drawings that are thousands of years old. They wanted us to see it's freezing up there. And I wasn't dressed. I was in basketball shoes and ankle braces because I wasn't expecting to come there and go on a hike.
Right.
Going down the mountain took 2.5 hours and was almost worse because of the braces and the high tops. My ankles never gave, so all the pressure was on my knees.
Yeah.
Long story short, 7 hours. About 7 hours, we're done. And we've got to go right back there. I had jet lag. We had just gotten into France and do a meeting. And I was actually arguing with my son in the car.
Yeah.
I'm exhausted. Can't you do it? No, Dad, I can't do it. I can't do it. I was so exhausted, I had to go do the service.
Yeah.
Right? And I was kind of mad.
Just spent the
whole
time.
They made it sound like it's an hour hike, you know? So the next day, they asked, you want to go on a hike? And I just looked at the lady, and I said, no. Yeah. No. I notice sometimes in these other countries, Indonesia, France, if you say no with an excuse, it's an opening and it's not a no.
It's a try harder.
No is a complete sentence. Yeah. I've heard that so much lately.
There are times and people you just need to look in the eye and say no. And I tell you what, you get good at it and it feels good. Remember, Lonaiah? You did that.
I did.
I don't remember who you did that to, but you were commenting on how good it felt.
I was like, no.
Just to say no and leave it.
Hey, do you want to join us via video call while you're not here in town?
No.
I will answer for him no, because then that means I have to figure it out before he leaves.
Are you going to try to do another tour to Israel? No. Okay, so.
Too soon.
You gotta let that one heal first.
Would have been coming back today.
I know.
Yeah.
we want to
now. Actually, we would have been landing.
We want to welcome you to the Final Hour podcast, coming to you from the original Living Word Christian Center out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. My name is Jim Hammond.
I'm Lonaiah Farrell.
I'm John Gap.
And I'm JD.
Jerry.
Every week, Jim says Jerry after JD says his name.
Yes. And now you have
because it's like every time I'm like, just don't do it, Jim. Just don't do it. Just let it be. Let it be.
Kind of like what I'm doing with my hair until December 8th.
That's your own.
Just let it be.
I am not going to cut my hair.
Do you know how poofy it's going to be? It's going to be
poofy. And it's going to be halfway down my ears.
Especially if it's nice and dry by then, like winter dry.
Yeah.
And it's
can't wait to see what happens with you. I bet you anything. He comes back from vacation and he asks a week later for a haircut, and then she's going to be full because it's holiday season, and I'm not giving you my time slot.
You can have mine.
People are like, what? You go to the same barber?
It's a hairdresser. We had this conversation.
It's not a hairdresser.
A stylist.
I don't go to
stylist.
a hairdresser.
You don't go to a barber, Jim. A barber is totally
when you
different.
Say hairdresser, you think of, remember how that you had those dryers?
She does, though. She gives you a head massage. Does she not?
No, I said a dry. Would you listen?
I heard you. I heard you say
dryer that goes over your head.
Yeah, my mom had one of those.
I don't know.
In
I
her
bet
basement.
she did.
I guess I don't have the same. I'd just say stylist.
Anyways,
Yeah.
I ought to tell you something.
Yep. Jim's going for the mullet.
No, it's not a mullet because it's
a sore subject, is what it is.
all the same length.
We've had this conversation.
It's all the same length. A mullet is shorter and longer in the back.
Calm down. It's a joke, pal.
I mean, if you get your beard trimmer out and you could give yourself a mullet till then,
you should.
Just cut it here on the sides. Oh, it'd be nice.
Some fades. Can you fade it?
Oh yeah.
And then do one on your eyebrow. That's the thing, like one. No,
I'd be afraid that wouldn't grow back.
I know. To me, that's like a.
You don't touch your brows if you got good ones.
Yeah.
I know some men that color their eyebrows. We'll stop it there. Okay, so
not me.
Not me either. Okay,
I don't color anything, obviously.
Your hair looks good, John.
Thanks.
So we're telling you this is our last. This download, which will be October 22nd. We've done 138 episodes.
It was a good run, guys.
I know, that's what I'm saying. These people are probably like,
never had a break. So
I took a break.
There will be no download on October 29th, November 5th, or November 12th. 3 Tuesdays, no download. The next one will be downloaded on November 19th. Okay, let me say that again so you get it.
Because John was talking in the background.
The next upload will be November 19th.
Don't forget to vote because we won't be here to remind you every week.
Yeah. Tuesday, November 19th, all right?
Yep.
No uploads October 29th, November 5th, November 12th. 3 Tuesdays.
We're giving you a chance to catch up.
Yeah. Is it okay for Jerry to repost like saucy political memes before, he just finds good ones from the internet and just repost it on our account? Is that okay?
No, that's illegal.
Okay,
the misinformation police will come for us, and then we'll wind up in jail like that one guy who said, don't go to the polls today, just text this number to vote for Hillary.
That's so funny.
Or
that is so funny.
Republicans vote on Tuesday and Democrats on Wednesday.
Yeah. We won't be doing any of those things.
We shan't.
Look, last week we gave you 45 goals of communism. Are you raising your hand?
No, you're saying 45.
I was like, I got 2 hand raisers
4
now.
to 5.
John 45. Just interrupts. He doesn't raise his hand.
That were brought into effect. 45 goals. These were brought into effect in the late 50s, early 60s, when a KGB agent from Russia defected to the United States and shared the master plan of communism for world domination. And I think we all agree that the 45 goals for communism to infiltrate the United States that we went over last week have basically already happened.
Yep.
Very large portion. Yeah.
So we're on this little communism thing because if you believe Jesus Christ is your Lord and Savior, you absolutely have to be anti-communist.
Yes.
Absolutely.
All right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't be a card-carrying communist.
Or even commie light.
And have Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. Or you're not going to believe in any of the basic principles of freedom, Christianity. I don't think people think that this is a threat. I don't know why this always happens, but I just can't help it.
You got to check and make sure.
Well, you never
your phone's
know. We
off.
might be able to answer. No, can't answer that one. But I don't think people. You got North Korea, you have China, but people are looking at China saying, "Oh, that's like an oligarchy or a form of fascism." China has a lot of capitalist philosophies. They're not real communists. Well, if you study communism, and I'll say this again, even Lenin, when he was able to win that revolution in 1917, because they didn't have any money, he opened private businesses.
Right.
Because the communists understand in that stage, yeah, maybe you're going to control everything eventually.
Right.
But to get the money, to be able to distribute,
Yeah.
because capitalism is a profit. You're going to make a
Absolutely.
profit.
Yeah.
And so even Lenin opened, in the United States, when Lenin opened these private businesses,
Yep.
was like, look, he knows it doesn't work.
Right.
He's not going to be a communist.
Right.
Little did they know it was part. It was part of his plan.
Yep.
And so, if you believe in your freedom, if you believe in Jesus Christ, you need to listen to me, and you need to understand not just how we got here, but where this is probably going in line with the Bible, which says we will be looking at a one world government, and the UN wants to do it by 2030.
Yeah.
The World Economic Forum is very connected to China.
Yep.
We could have done a whole podcast on that. Basically, globalism is communism.
Oh, yeah.
All right?
What? Yeah. I think one of the things that I came away from last week wishing that I had said were, a couple of things, but one of the biggest things is it's real tough to be a Christian and a communist or a socialist and really understand the Bible is no one else can accept Christ for you. That has to be an individual, personal decision. And in socialism and communism, people are put into classes or into groups, and you don't get choices. You don't get to decide a lot of things for yourself because everything is decided for you, whether by the state or by a local government, whatever. But the fact that your decisions are no longer yours, and that's what we started like with the podcast 2 years ago,
Right.
was the World Economic Forum and Klaus Schwab saying you'll own nothing and be happy. It has nothing to do with having that personal responsibility for your faith and for what you do with your life and the decisions that you make. And it's,
Good point.
Communism is anti-God.
Absolutely.
And that's, Russia, you had to sneak the Bibles in.
Yep.
They persecuted the church. It's anti-God. And you can say, oh, I'm a Christian,
Right.
but you don't believe in the principles
Right.
of the Bible. So are you?
Well,
Are you? Well, I believe Jesus Christ died and rose again, but I'm a card-carrying communist. Well, you don't believe what's in here then.
Yeah.
And so I just want to point you towards the master plan, how clear things are. If you're willing to listen, this ex-KGB agent by the name of Anatoliy Golitsyn, this Russian agent, once he defected to the United States, he tried to give the CIA all the information that he had. But finally, because they wouldn't really believe him, he wrote a book predicting everything that has happened. All right. He defected in 1961. He wrote this book in 1984 called New Lies for Old. Okay.
Yeah.
Anatoliy Golitsyn. You can still purchase the book today on Amazon. So he comes out with this book, key year 1984, height of the Cold War. And the stuff I'm going to be talking about, if you're the younger generation, you need to understand this history, because this is your world. And this is where they want you to own nothing, right? And be happy about it. This is your world. This is how we got here. Most people don't know this, and I didn't know this until we started digging on this. This is probably, and this is a big part in my life. I remember all this stuff very clearly, at least when communism supposedly fell with the wall. And it, the Bible says we're going to a one world government.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
it
so
does.
who you texting, John?
A lot of people.
Oh.
They need to tune into this podcast. It's going to be really good.
Okay. All right. I want, if you want to understand the world today, read this guy's book that's ex-KGB agent. Basically, he said, here is the plan. So Golitsyn said that in 1957, there was a world gathering of the Communist Party from 18 different countries. And this is what the ex-KGB agent said here, that they came up with the plan. They said, this is how we're going to do it. First, we're going to make it look, they all met in Moscow. We're going to make it look like there's a split within communism. The Communist Party is going in different directions, but still calling themselves communists.
Right.
And what they did, for starters, the first split was between Russia and China. And they made a big show of it and actually fired a few rockets at each other. And it was just like a minor international incident in the early 60s. And it was shown to show that they were going two different directions within communism. There were other splits within the Communist Party. At the time, Yugoslavia had a different slant to communism. Coming out of World War II, they had a leader by the name of Tito that came out of World War II. He fought the Nazis in the Yugoslavia and had a little army of 50,000, ran from the Nazis the whole time. When the Nazis fell, he got control of Yugoslavia, which today, since Tito died, has split into three different countries.
Right.
But all that to say, they set up this split between Russia and China, and Russia's watching because Tito's like to Russia, no, you're not. I'm not going to become your little satellite nation. Okay, I'm still a communist, but you don't own me.
Right.
Right? So he started pandering to the West. Well, the West is like, well, let's split them up.
Right.
And so he starts getting money.
Right.
Right? This communist, and the same thing happened with China too. Give it a few years. The American president at that time opened diplomatic relations with China for the first time with Nixon. Because why? Because they saw the split.
Right.
So the United States is like, oh, let's drive a wedge.
Yep.
They're already split. Let's back China.
It was an economic wedge.
So the USA starts making deals with China to further drive a wedge between China and Russia. And what always comes with those deals when you're dealing with capitalism and U.S. politicians, we gave China a lot of money. Because, oh, they're so poor. They're so poor. That's what communism will do. You're very poor, right? Well, let's help them along. A lot of help. But I can tell you, this was their plan. This was the plan. This ex-KGB agent who defected to the United States in 57 said this was the plan. Who could see that one day the U.S. sending most of their Midwest manufacturing to China?
Insanity.
Because that's where it wound up.
Yep.
It started with this. And this was the beginning.
Which takes the sales out of our own industry here in the United States, or it takes the wind out of the sails of our own industry, our own manufacturing, and our own reliance on our own country.
I mean, one of the goals of the 45 Goals of Communism was to open free trade.
Yep.
Trade between the communists and the capitalists.
Yep.
It was all staged by the Communist Party in 1957 between 18 Communist Party governments representatives meeting in Moscow. This plan was developed by the head of the KGB at the time, by a guy by the name of Shelpin. All this ex-KGB agent that defected to America is in this book that he wrote, right? The same thing happened with Yugoslavia. Tito wouldn't pander to the Russians, says, yeah, I'm a communist. I'm just not going to be your communist. He was definitely a communist dictator, but he pandered to the U.S. The U.S. government, seeing a chance to get in there, gives Tito anything he wants, rebuilds his whole country after World War II with U.S. money. And you know, the U.S. is just trying to get him to lean towards freedom.
Right.
This went on in Romania. All these countries, what we used to call satellite countries for Russia. And look at what they had the U.S. doing. Oh, the U.S. thinks, oh, we're dividing these guys. Right?
Yeah.
No. You're just giving them money for later.
You're just funding their own infrastructure of what they can lean on.
We built them better militaries, better roads. We built up their economies. And look at all the American businesses that moved to China. In the end, just moved over.
Yep.
So do you see what we're talking about here? They organize and orchestrate a number of splits
Yep.
within it, but doesn't stop there. That brings in American money, infrastructure, military hardware, manufacturing, because at that time they were getting nothing from us.
Right.
We were like, let them die.
Yep.
Let them die, right? And they were dying. And it gives the Communist Party inroads if you open free trade. Think about this. It was called the Soviet bloc. All these countries that were communist under the Soviet thumb, the Russian rule. You saw what happened with Yugoslavia. So the Soviets like, hey, they saw that. Let's orchestrate some of these countries like they want to break free.
Yeah.
And it looks like they're breaking free. And what's the U.S. going to do?
Send them
They're
money.
going to come in with money.
Send them guns. Send them anything they can do to start resisting the Soviet influence.
Money rebuilds everything in order to keep them away from us. The Soviets, they said, we're going to fade into the background for a while. Mm-hmm. Eventually, the Soviet Union, not able to have the industry of all the Soviet bloc countries. Make sure you tell James Tan next time that I licked the microphone. Because if he thinks I licked the microphone, I did by accident, he will never touch the microphone, right?
Should I lick mine too?
I'm not licking
Just in
it.
case. And so he can use Lonaiah's mic. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the Soviet Union finally collapses, right? And we remember it was a big party when they did. It was a big party. It was the biggest thing that's ever happened.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down that wall.
But listen to this. Listen to this. This KGB agent in 1957, he wrote a book in 1984, said this was the plan all along, which is mind-blowing to me. If you look at it now, who's running Russia?
The KGB.
An ex-KGB agent, an ex-communist. Keep in mind now, Russia and China have been allies since 2001.
We like our Russia. She's
And-
strong.
And
It's a motherland.
officially, they brought it all back together here, China and Russia. In 2018, China and Russia held the largest ever in the history of the world joint military exercise right outside St. Petersburg, Russia. Largest ever in history. And, and numerous exercises after that. Do you know what a military exercise, you're practicing going to war,
Let's see how well we can work together.
getting on the same page. How does everything move? How do all these parts move? How does it work? Who's in charge? Who has the last call? And so they practiced tactics, but it didn't stop there. The ex-KGB agent, Golitsyn, said the 1961 China-Russia Communist Party split was a complete fake to give the West an illusion of weakness. Look at where we are with America and American
Wow.
industry.
Amazing strategy.
In the Midwest, a fraction of the industry in the Midwest is a fraction of what it was. We sent a lot of that industry that was in the Midwestern part of the country to China.
Which weakened our rural and smaller towns that were living on a lot of that manufacturing and industry.
Right.
Yeah.
And for China takes over the manufacturing, built up their economy, all the time thinking we're going to make them capitalist.
Right.
And forever cut them off from Russia. Well,
No, we just
do
made
you
them
think
rich.
that worked? Do you think that worked?
We just built their own infrastructure for them.
Look at where it is today. Under Obama, for Navy, for China was building during the Obama years 63 ships a year for their Navy. The U.S., depending on the year, under Obama, 7 to 10 ships.
Yeah.
Oh,
So look at what's happening here. Our manufacturing,
Right.
what we're doing, what they're doing for
that
their
kind of
military.
feels like that is on purpose.
And that also brings back this partnership of the Russia and China coming back into existence or like friendship. We've been talking about BRICS.
Oh, yeah.
And,
Yeah.
you know, what do you need to build a wall against America? Bricks.
It's to bring
Good
us
point.
down economically.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just militarily. And
It's play on
But-
words that I never thought about before, but that's what they're doing is, you know, they're banding together to try to take down the American dollar.
the capacities of the industries of China and the U.S. have, in essence, flipped. And that's dangerous, see? Because you could say the industry, if you really study history, industry won World War II.
Oh, yeah.
The U.S. industry. The Japanese quickly saw that we could put out literally 100 planes a day.
Well, and we retrofitted
You know,
companies to do war making, you know, things that we needed for war. And because we had the industry to do it, we were able to flex and
the people.
put all that manpower into it just on a dime.
The ability to build ships, planes, tanks, ammunition fast and well,
Yep.
right, wins a war. It really does. It wins a war. So what we're looking at the Chinese and the Russians, the goal is to get to the point where combined Russia and China can crush the U.S. in a decisive military action, or through economic or blackmail through industry and manufacturing, tie up the U.S.'s hands.
Yeah.
And so how are you going to go to war with China when they're producing most of your steel? There are quite a few experts that believe Russia and China want to get to the point, not where America slowly fades away, but where America is decisively crushed in a blow
Yep.
or a series of blows. There's a manuscript that's written between two Chinese communist colonels in the Chinese army called Unrestricted Warfare. If you don't think that this is their goal, the ex-KGB agent that wrote this book in 1984 saying all this is going to happen. And he's saying the Soviet Union in 1984.
Yeah. Yeah.
In this guy's book, he says the Soviet Union is going to fall apart on purpose.
Yeah.
And the
Crazy.
old hardline communists of the Soviet Union are going to take a step back.
Yep.
And all this happened in
gonna watch.
1986, 2 years after this book came out at the height of the Cold War. 2 years later, the Soviet Union fell. And this guy's saying, this is all in the plan. Going back to 1957. Gorbachev, the Russian president, wasn't even in office until 85.
Right.
All right? Well, this guy wrote the book in 1984 before any of it happened. What he says in this book is Russia collapses as the West went into all their Soviet bloc satellite countries, gave them new infrastructure, propped up their economies. The Soviet Union collapses. The old school Communist Party steps back in the shadows. What does America do? I remember watching. When the Soviet Union collapsed, it was a feeling of
Yeah.
there's no more enemy.
Right.
This is what they wanted. There's no one to fight.
There's no one to fight, so we can let our guard down.
Well,
Doesn't it make you think that like everybody's just a part of this whole scheme?
Well, you get Bill Clinton in office for 8 years. You get Obama in office for 8 years. All right? Over that time span, we disarmed.
Yeah.
We literally disarmed.
Yeah.
All right? Compared to what we were like under Reagan. There's not a 2 million man army of the Soviet Union to compete with anymore.
Right.
They fell apart. Let's help them. Let's make them capitalists.
Yeah.
But did they?
Let's make them free. Are they free now? Anybody over there criticizes Putin gets poisoned
Yeah.
or has to run, right? Or dies. So we go in there. We think we're going to make them capitalists. We spend all kinds of money because they're doing so terribly poor. all the poverty in the Soviet Union from all those evil communists. The U.S. does everything it can to help the Russians. What is that? What did that do for us today? Where did that get us? The crazy thing is the KGB agent that defected wrote in the book that this has been the plan.
Yeah.
This, first a split in communism, eventually invite the West in.
Yeah.
Eventually, it looks as if it falls. They even said, we're gonna take that word out, for the Russians. We're not gonna use the word communist anymore.
Right.
Right?
We call them Soviets.
Golitsyn in his
They
book.
removed the word. See, there we are with the words being changed again.
Yep. Change the language
Yes.
slightly, and you get a whole new representation.
Golitsyn in his book, that's the KGB agent, said it was the plan all along that the Soviet Union and China would reunite. And they did that in 2001. Reunite to the point where they're strong enough to take down the U.S. military, if not break them economically. Remember when the Berlin Wall fell, those countries were liberated, all the celebrations?
Yeah.
Well, who's running Russia now? An ex-KGB agent,
It's a KGB.
Putin. Golitsyn, in his book, made 204 predictions. 177 have come true.
Dang.
It's pretty good.
They said he was the most valuable defected person who's come
Yeah.
to the United States. I read about it on Wikipedia.
Yeah. I think one of the things that you talk about the United States still trying to help out all of those former Soviet satellites. Look at our debt load right now. How much money do we send away to countries who, in the end, are anti-United States, who are anti-America, but we are going into debt every year?
Why?
We're 30.
We just sent
trillion.
$425 million more dollars to Ukraine this week.
Right.
Why?
So, what is this getting us? And if you asked me, I would say
probably on purpose.
that Russia is still in charge of Ukraine. I don't believe that Zelensky is a United States guy. I think he is tied to Russia.
Right.
And I think in the end, the more you read this that you're talking about here today, Jim, is the more you start to suspect that's what's going on.
So the whole plan is to make it seem to the West that they need to enter in. Yeah. They need to put their money into these ex-communist countries. It weakens the resolve of the American people because we're not looking at the evil Red Army anymore. The Cold War. Matter of fact, we can be their friends. This was all the plan. If you've got a regular trade with each other, a lot of business being done, it makes it much easier to infiltrate with spies. And this is a fact by Western spies that trained in Moscow with 5,000 agents. They backed this whole thing up. All right. We had spies in there from Western countries, and they told these spies that they're training, but they don't know that one of the Western countries had a spy in there. And they said, hey, here's what's going to happen. The Soviet Union is going to go down, and it's going to bring the Americans in. And this is how we get into their culture. Think about this. In the book, the KGB agent writes that it would help if they got rid of world communism, but the goals stay the same.
Yeah.
You just change the name.
a little bit.
You don't hear Russia being called communist.
Yeah.
But anyone that criticizes Putin over there winds up poisoned, thrown in a prison cell, and inside Siberia. You're free over there as long as you keep your mouth shut. This is a validated stuff here. The Russians in 1980 put a guy named Andropov in. He loved American music. He loved American bourbon.
Yeah.
He loved American alcohol. He was this new type of communist leader.
We're tired of vodka.
And they had groomed him for it. It was
The drink of the Russians.
The vodka.
It was going to be Andropov, and they were planning for the Soviet Union to fall apart under Andropov, and he got cancer. So they were caught off guard for a couple of years. They brought in a hardline communist to run the country until they could bring in Gorbachev in 1985 for the reason to make it seem to the West the Soviet Union's open up. The Communist Party of the Soviet Union is still intact.
Yeah.
The KGB is still intact, still doing the same things they were doing under communism. They just changed the name. They changed the letters. The military is still intact. Matter of fact, he's fought a war. How long? Think about how most of his army has seen combat. The Russian army, they've had to fight in foxholes against tanks, against drones. They know the feeling of having bullets fly over their heads. That's important for an army.
Yeah.
What this is going on for 3 years of combat, going on 3 years for the Russian army. Okay, a combat seasoned army is so much an advantage.
Yeah.
Okay, Gorbachev coming in 85 was the Soviet Union's plan. They're giving something up in order to get more down the road, is what they're doing. The Russians are famous chess players. They'll give up a piece
Absolutely.
to get that bigger piece.
Those feints are so effective with an overconfident opponent.
Just because you say Putin says the Russians can have private businesses over there, well, in the Russian Revolution, like I said, Russian Revolution in 1917, that's the first thing Lenin did, right? Look, you can be a Marxist, you can be a communist, and still have private enterprise that builds wealth. I mean, I could really get into it. It would take a long time to go to the feudal system. You're talking about, when you go from basic primitive communism to where everybody's, sharing the elk in the cave into feudalism. All right. There is a step to get to communism where you have to have capitalism for anything to have anything to distribute. I've read on the Russian Revolution that was part of the problem is they were so poor, they had nothing to distribute.
Right.
When Lenin got control, he had to open private businesses. And the Vietnamese, the Chinese, how the communists use private businesses in Vietnam, China. If you come up with a song making fun of the Chinese government and touring live over there, okay,
I won't do that.
You're gonna die. All right.
Yeah.
They're not free
It's a
people.
warning.
But by the way, China had a military exercise around Taiwan. That's why Taiwan will not enter into that. 125 ships and airplanes, the largest, surrounded the island.
Yep.
Just last week. Even though the KGB agent the KGB doesn't go under the name the KGB anymore. It's still the Russian intelligence services are still there. You have an ex-KGB agent that has run the country for decades. And if you're looking at the nuclear issue, since we decided to disarm, most experts believe between tactical, and this is what they wanted, and strategic nuclear weapons, we have 1,700. We used to have 50,000.
Yeah.
Right? You know what the Soviet Union has? 4,500 tactical and strategic nuclear weapons. And you know what? Most experts agree the Soviets' strategic nuclear weapons are newer and
So they've been
better.
investing in it.
So you've got China pressing Taiwan, the Soviets going into 3 years for 3 years now, and you've Ukraine, you've got the close Chinese Russian alliance. I'll leave you with this. And I got this guy from a guy on Epic Times named Trevor Loudon. He has this Russian double agent. Really, he was a Western agent spying, and he's the same guy. He's sitting he's in Russia being trained, and these trainees were all asking, when the Russians were in Afghanistan, you're making us look bad. What are you doing over there? Why can't you crush these tribal dudes? You're making us look bad, you know. And the instructors would always say, just be patient.
Yeah.
This is what's supposed to happen. Trust us. This is all in the plan. And you might not believe that. All right?
Yeah.
And Trevor Loudon simply says, Epic Times, you can believe it, you not believe it. I believe it.
Absolutely.
That they said they had their Vietnam. America had their Vietnam. We have to have a Vietnam for them to think that we're weak.
Right.
For them to think that we're weak.
Yep. Otherwise, the U.S. will keep pressing.
Yes, we'll keep building and building and building.
Yep.
And so...
We really are in the Truman Show then, huh?
I mean...
What?
Din, din, din. We're just little puppets in a...
Well, you
I
got
said we really are
the
in the
Russians
Truman Show.
are playing chess. They're playing the long
But
game.
you know what the Bible says? It says that they dig a hole, right? They fall into it. They dig their own pit and then they fall. Is that Psalm 94 and then Proverbs 26 something? They both say it.
Yeah.
So they plot and they scheme and they do all these things and then they end up falling into it. Just
Falling
like
in their own
what was
pit.
it, Hammond? He created the noose and then he ended up getting hung on it himself.
Well,
Pray that every day. Give us rest from the days of adversity.
and especially the Ezekiel 38 war, Russia's drawn in and tries to take Israel, and it doesn't go well.
See?
And
They dig their own
at that
pit.
point, all right, is out of the game.
Right.
We believe Russia at that point is destroyed. I just, you know, as a military force.
Yeah.
But notice that China is not listed in the Ezekiel 38 war.
Right.
Not saying they can't be in it, right? Because there's obviously says in many other countries.
And many other, yeah.
But listen, and maybe that, you know, I just think this whole Ukraine thing is a ruse. I think that how could all these military analysts be so wrong that Russia they said Russia was going to roll through the Ukraine in 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What's
And
it
they're
been, like
still
2
fighting.
years?
Yeah.
For almost
Which
3
is-
years.
What's
3 years.
What's
later.
the point? It's coming up on 3. It'll be 3
February.
in
I wonder
February.
what I remember it happened in February. I wonder what the total amount of money that the United States has given is. It's got to be in the billions now.
Oh, it's
Couple billion.
no, it's way higher because it's been 60
Couple
billion.
billion.
It's close to 150 billion.
Oh, it's more than that, I think.
Yeah.
You could Google that probably.
Yeah, it's
but
because
listen,
it's multiple times. It's been 60 billion.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
okay, so Lonaiah's going to do the news. Remember, no upload on October 29th, November 5th, and November 12th. No upload. We'll be back on November 19th. Here's Lonaiah with a lot of the news she does is you won't see in the regular news.
Sometimes you do. As we've learned before when I brought a subject
okay.
up and Jim's like, I heard that last night on ABC. Of course. Of course.
They might not have given you
They
all
didn't.
of the
They
picture.
didn't. Of course not.
In the news, yeah.
This should be very telling, right? Because the Border Patrol agents, the Border Patrol, like head of the Border Patrol, said that if Harris wins, I was going to say Biden, but if Harris wins, that they're going to do a mass exodus and leave because they have said that they want to do the vetting process and maintain the border because I don't know if you guys saw, but there was a border agent. They did a documentary. I don't know who did it. I just saw a clip on Instagram, and this Border Patrol agent was crying. And he was like, they're letting children into this country, and we have to give them to a handler.
I saw that.
And we aren't allowed to stop it because the Biden administration is telling us to, pass these people through. We're following direct orders. We can't go against it. And he's crying and saying, this is what they're making us do.
Right.
So the Border Patrol...
And what happens then to the children, Lonaiah? What are you saying?
They get trafficked. Sex trafficked, drugs.
So we're implying...
Whatever. I mean,
We're saying the government knows it.
Well, you guys, child sex trafficking has tripled under the why can't I think of her name?
Biden
Kamala,
Harris.
administration.
She was the border czar.
She was the border czar. Okay, and
there was never any such position as the border czar.
That's
We
what she
never,
says.
Ever said that, even though it was printed in mainstream media.
It was. Well,
my-
she wouldn't make that much
that's my
sense, John. She
impression.
would scroll
That's
around.
not her. That's just everybody who
Oh, okay.
starts defending.
It was never. There's no. We aren't czars. We're not Russia. We're Americans. We don't have czars.
Okay, that should tell you something, though. If the Border Patrol whole administration is standing behind Trump and saying, we want him in control because he's going to vet and take care of and manage the border correctly, right? Yeah. Okay, so they just found this out, that 30% of security cameras that monitor the borders are reportedly broken, meaning the number of illegal gotaways is way more than is reported.
I've told you 22 million for a long time.
Of course.
Told you it's 22 million.
And then you have, this is interesting because I read this. I don't know if you guys saw, but I know Baltimore is here and he can pronounce this name correctly, but the Tren de Aragua, this gang, the Venezuelan gang, second one. Okay, you guys? They have taken over.
Tren de Aragua.
Yes, they've taken over apartment buildings in Denver, Colorado. You saw the maintenance guy who got beat up and was like, I couldn't stop them. They've taken over 4 apartment complexes in Texas. You had one of their gang members be arrested in Texas for trying to recruit middle schoolers to the most violent gang, okay? The most violent gang. Absolutely. This is what the Biden administration has let in.
And you're not going to hear this on Lester Holt.
The Aragua
of course
train.
not.
NBC.
But,
or Channel 11 in the morning.
Well, did you see the lady from MSNBC?
That's what I was getting to, John.
Go ahead.
No, well, you go first. I'll go after you. Well, it was
just, she was saying.
With J.D. Vance?
Yeah, with J.D. Vance. She's like, there's only, officials say there's only a handful of apartment complexes. But she was saying, but Trump is saying that it's overtaken and it's like, there's so many, but it's only a handful. And then J.D. Vance says. Yeah, he's like, can you hear yourself that you think it's okay that there's a few complexes that have been taken over by violent gangs? Are you serious?
And he's like, look at yourself. Look at what you're doing. Right. And she kept trying, and he was like, no, you're twisting the words and you're making it sound like Trump is wrong when the Biden-Harris administration has let them in.
Why would that be allowable no matter who's in charge?
Exactly. That's what J.D. Vance's point was, which I totally agree because they dumb it down, right? Like pedophilia. It's now minor attracted persons.
Right.
So it doesn't sound so violating. So only a few complexes have been taken over by
just a few.
This gang.
Just a few.
Which
not in your neighborhood.
Violent gang law or rule in your neighborhood, as long as it's just a couple neighborhoods.
It's okay.
Just a couple.
It's fine.
Give them a few apartment buildings.
And just because there's been a few young American ladies have been raped and killed
and
violently,
murdered,
as long as it's just a few, that we should be able to let all these violent, unvetted illegal immigrants.
Don't send in the cops. We don't need to send in the cops to take that building. We don't need SWAT. We don't need the National Guard to take the apartment building back from the violent gang members.
Lincoln Riley.
From the violent gang members from Venezuela.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Bill Clinton.
Yeah. He's like, well, if it should have been vetted. You're like,
yeah. The person running for president right now is the one who should have been vetting the people.
Yep. But
Speaking
they
of,
stopped that on the first day of
remember
the Biden-Harris
that was their number one thing they removed of one of the executive orders that Trump put in place. But Kamala Harris did an interview with Fox News, Bret Baier, and I was actually going through social media, and the left is saying that was an amazing interview. She did so good, but she couldn't answer a question, and he kept saying this is what's happened. You keep saying that you want to turn the page. Turn the page. You're in charge. You've been in charge for 3 years. And he's like, actually, you guys have been in charge for, and he lists how many years the Democrats have been in charge and how many Republicans shit. But Trump is running, and he's like, but you're in the office, and she couldn't
holding the office, and she was not happy about his.
She was
pushback.
not happy.
Well, on the Today Show,
what did they say?
I saw them report that, and they cherry picked
big time
to make her look like she was
really came out on top.
She was jumping all over Bret Baier,
right?
But they didn't pick any of the questions he kept asking her that she never answered. That she'll never answer.
She can't answer anything.
Right.
They won't.
Right.
But I will say, I don't know. I feel like this is staged, and I don't know why. But all of a sudden, something came out about Kamala Harris wrote a book in 2009, and she majorly plagiarized the book, right? Pulled parts off of Wikipedia. One? I don't know. I just know the book in 2009. There's a couple of them. You go ahead. But now they're saying that this is a serious problem, right? That she plagiarized. The book. So I'm kind of like, what's their plan here? Are they planning to replace her, or what are they trying to do? They realize they're down and they can't get themselves back up.
Right.
Because now you have Biden and Obama working together,
Right.
talking about how much better Biden is than Kamala Harris. Like lip readers are saying that they read their lips
The New
while
York
they're
Times,
having a yes.
New York Times had a video lip read.
Yes.
And it looks like they're saying, yeah, she's not looking good. Obama said, I'm going to do something about this next week. I'm coming up there or something like that.
Yeah, and then he went and talked to the black people and told the black people that they need to vote for Harris. And then a bunch of black Americans were like, stop telling us to vote just based on our color. We're deeper, like we're deeper than that.
That's how you fight communism is you quit being you take a hold of your own individual identity and quit being identified by a group of an abstract or an arbitrary thing like your skin color.
Which I will say,
or your
Candace
location.
Owens has done great podcasts lately on this whole subject of like Obama being in office, Kamala Harris, and like going after the black people the way she is, like saying, we'll give you guys $20,000, like the black people, $20,000 loans that you can, forgivable loans that you can pay back at any time. And everyone's like, why are you creating a race divide? And she's saying like, we want reparations, right? And
reparations.
Why do I keep saying that? And everyone's like, stop doing that. We like, that's not what we're asking for. We're not asking for any of that.
Well,
so now they're starting to get pushback because you're trying to just.
Yeah. Over the last week, Candace Owens she's been on two things. One thing is Kamala Harris has misrepresented her heritage.
Yes, I've seen that. Very eye-opening.
Her dad is half Irish white.
Yes.
And they would make her, a large portion white and,
right. And then you have the Obama thing.
And then the Obama thing
where
Candace Owens has been looking into his background as well.
Because she was saying, like, when he first came out with his book, he wasn't anybody. He wasn't running for president.
And he was...
And he was what?
He was originally born in Kenya.
And then was raised in Indonesia. And then... Anyways.
So there's a lot going on.
In Indonesia.
Well, I do remember being in Indonesia on a missions trip when he was running for the first time. And the amount of people over there who was like, no, he was here.
Yeah.
No, they talk about it. They cheered. He was one of them.
Yeah.
To them.
Yeah.
We spent 55 trips.
Yeah.
Right. I spent equivalent of maybe a year and a half in Indonesia if you add up all the trips.
Time.
And I'll just say this: they treated Obama like he was theirs.
Yeah.
Them.
Yeah.
You know he's Indonesian.
Yeah.
But the point you were trying to make is we kind of skipped over it. You're saying you think they could try to replace Kamala Harris?
I'm just like, what's their point?
I don't think that's happening.
I think it's too late.
I think it is too, but I'm like, what's their point? Why are they all attacking?
Obama is the only one.
Why are they all attacking her all of a sudden? I don't know. They're just they have to win because look what everything we just read.
It all depends on them having control.
Right.
You have to say this. You cannot believe the polls.
No.
All right, you cannot.
Well, the polls show Trump winning.
Well, look, Hillary Clinton.
Don't
I have to
rely
say
on
this. I have to say, Hillary Clinton had a 6 to 8 point lead in the polls, against Trump, and look what happened. You cannot believe the polls.
You have to get out and vote.
You cannot believe the polls because the polls are all to keep you from voting.
Right.
Speaking of the polls, so Governor Youngkin in Virginia went through all of the registered voters and removed people off of the registration
appropriately
who were ineligible, right, to vote. Well, the Department of Justice is suing him for this. Why would the Department of Justice be suing someone for removing ineligible voters off of the voting registration?
For taking people that should rightly be off of the rolls.
Right.
Yeah, that one's not going to go anywhere.
And no. It's obviously not going to go anywhere, but that should tell you.
But the Department
they're probably
of Justice
freaking
has
out a little
had
bit.
A real dearth of justice for a few years.
Right, and I'm going to end on this note because we've talked about how the devil tries to attack your children. Right, actually, let me tell you really fast. Mm-hmm. I work out at this gym, and one of the instructors is going to school to be a teacher, and she goes to the U of M. She's like, I don't know, 23, and before every class for this whole year, she has had to announce her pronoun. The whole class has to announce their pronouns before class starts. She's like, I don't do that. And they also have to give like honor to the land and like say a whole, like, we thank the earth for like letting us live here, blah, 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 blah. Well, you know, it's MEA, right? Mm-hmm. So she has to go to the MEA teachers convention yesterday. Yep. She's like, and I don't know what side she's on, but I'm feeling like she probably leans more right. She's like, that was the biggest indoctrination I've ever been involved in my life. She's like, I texted my dad and said, can I leave? And she said, but right before I left, like the speaker was talking and she makes a comment and says like, okay, well, something about God. And she's like, oops, I said God's name. Like, we shouldn't say that. Like she said, like they're almost like mocking God in their context of like what she was saying. Right. And she was like, I was appalled that that's what you're doing when you're supposed to be like teaching teachers. But I thought, okay, so it's the Teachers Association, which Trump says he wants to dismantle because what have we talked about in all these all these states in the United States, right? Like California, they passed a law, I think it was the beginning of the summer, where teachers don't have to inform parents if the child wants to change its gender, be called by a different name, whatever, right? So they're trying to cause and create separation between the parents and the children. Yeah. And the Teachers Association is like one of the avenues that they're indoctrinating all these children in the schools. So she was just saying, I was like, well, I'm impressed that you even want to be a teacher these days. She's like, somebody has to be an advocate for the kids. And I was like, well, good for you. So, but like, that was just a sidebar. That wasn't what I was going to end on.
That's good.
But children, if your children plays the game of Fortnite, my son used to, it's a really popular video game. But this Fortnite now has a new feature that they just started, I think it was this week or last week, that allows players, you guys, to sell their soul to the devil and to revive themselves and their teammates. This is a kid's game.
Revive. The Antichrist.
You sell
Is
your
gonna be
soul
revived.
to the devil.
Raised from the dead.
Yes. Is that
You're
wild?
going to raise people from the dead.
That is terrible.
Terrible.
Yeah.
So
Well,
pay attention.
Glad that kid doesn't play that
when
one
our
anymore.
kids were younger, I mean, our oldest son still plays video games, but we make the door stay. Like, you can't shut the door in your room, or like at that time, he had to be in the like main living area.
Yeah, that's what ours
and now
is
it's
too.
in his bedroom, but the door has to stay open. And like, we walk in and out, right?
Yep.
But pay attention to what your kids are doing, what they're watching online.
Yeah,
'cause
make sure they're not
it all
selling their
comes
souls
in
to the
here.
devil on their video
Yeah,
games.
because you know what, you think it's funny, or like, you know, they're just trying to desensitize you once again to.
Right.
Well, it's also opening that kid up to,
Of course.
to something in the spirit.
Of course.
And with that, we'll remember this will download on October 22nd. No download on October 29th, or upload on 29th, November 5th, November 12th. So we're out 3 weeks, and we are back November 19th.
I'll miss you.
Same.
Monday night, November 18th, midnight. Tuesday night, November 19th.
Wow, look at you. You've come a long way.
Tuesday morning.
Let us know
November
if you've been
19th,
catching
midnight.
up and what the episodes are that you're catching up on. You can email us at hello@thefinalhourpodcast.com.
True. All right. Well, have fun on your vacation, Jim.
I'm not going anywhere. Make sure you vote.
Okay.
Make sure you vote.
Get out there.
Get out there and vote.
Make your voice heard.
God bless you. No.